to another IncGamers podcast with me, Peter Parrish, and also with me, Paul Younger. Hello, Paul.
Good evening.
And this is a special treat for the people who are able to watch this and not just on audio, but Tim McDonald live from a child's bedroom. Unusually. Explain yourself, Tim.
My monitor's kind of exploded, so I'm on the spare computer, which is in the spare room, which is kind of doubling as the room for my niece. So yeah,
that's just an extra bit of visual, a visual bonus for the people who are watching rather than listening. If you're on audio this week, I recommend at least watching a few minutes of the podcast. Definitely.
It's not that funny, surely.
He says it's his niece's bedroom, but actually I think the pink hearts on that duvet are actually his. It's his room. Everything else was just a ruse.
Are you not allowed to sleep on the top bunk yet, Tim? You're not old enough.
Actually, no, but that's because we took it down earlier and haven't fixed it back up there properly. So if I try and climb on that, it'll probably collapse and kill me.
Tim,
that is a risk.
Did Mummy have to change the sheets?
This is going to a weird place.
Screw the lot of you.
Yeah, well, Tim's left. There we go. I'll just talk to you instead, Paul. Have we? Last week we had a bit of a Steam giveaway for our 100th episode. Has anyone been taking us up on that offer? I'm sure they have.
There are posts in there, and we will sort it out. So probably what day are we on? Oh, we're Tuesday. No, we're Wednesday, of course.
Yes, right. Yes.
So at the end of the week we'll close that down and we'll dish them out. So you can still get a chance to go for it. So put your name down in that forum thread in the forums.
Yes, it's in the general forum.
Yeah,
area.
Just go to the IncGamers site, go to the navigation at the top, and click forums.
You'll find the thread, and you could get a free game. Maybe depends. Are we going to do it randomly, or are we just going to do it based on taste? So like, if someone gets some shit, I'm going to be like, no, not having that.
Oh yeah, definitely based on taste. No, but random.
Well, coming up, we will be discussing Ace Combat, subtitle that I've forgotten. I don't know, Combat Horizon Evolved or something. I'll talk a bit about. This is a professional broadcast. I'll talk a bit more about Omerta because I didn't really wasn't able to do so last week very much because I was still embargoed. We've all played a bit of Dungeon Land, so we might be able to discuss that. And if Paul's remembered something he's played this week, we'll be hearing about that too. Actually, he has been playing something, but it's NDA'd as well. So anyway, that's coming up. But right now, the news, which most recent and relevant, CD Projekt have, to the surprise of everyone, announced Witcher 3. You're not surprised, Paul, that The Witcher 3 has been announced?
No, totally shocked.
Actually, what? I don't think CD Projekt Red did announce this. I think it was Game Informer that announced this.
That's a good point. Yes, they blew their cover slightly early.
But when last week when CD Projekt put out that CD Projekt Red sort of development platform thing, there was obviously a screenshot that pretty much looked like it was from The Witcher 3. So everyone knew it was coming.
And in the end of the Cyberpunk trailer, there was a hidden message that basically said we're revealing something on the 5th of February. It's a game that you'll know. Pretty much stopped short of saying it stars Geralt the Witcher, but not much short of that, to be honest. So there's some interesting things about this, though. One is that it's supposedly going to be an open world affair, which is a bit of a departure from the previous two, which I know the second one had some kind of major branching storylines, but it wouldn't be described as open world. And also that they say it's going to be the last one in the series. They're wrapping up The Witcher with this one, with part 3. What do we think? I'm going to go to you, Tim, since you've played certainly The Witcher 2 and probably the first one, I'm going to guess. What do you think about this information that's come out today?
Tim, do you want a sweetie before we start?
Oh my god.
Hey. You got one? Where is it?
Ah.
Don't fucking tease me, Paul. When it comes to sweets. Yeah, I like the Witcher games. The Witcher was quite good. Had a few flaws. The sort of enhanced edition, director's cut, whatever it was called, fixed most of those. The Witcher 2 was very good, and the enhanced edition was also very good. I've kind of got the fear after this Witcher 3 announcement. So I really don't know how well this open world thing is going to work. I don't know whether you actually watched the video that went up, the sort of Game Informer one, and there was a quote from one of the developers in that where he said, and I quote, "Everyone likes open world games," which, hyperbole aside, that's fair enough. Open world games tend to be quite interesting, but I don't know if everything fits open world games. The Witcher was a very tightly knit story, plot, and character-driven RPG, and I don't think I've ever seen an open world game actually do it all that well. New Vegas was good, it had good characters, but it wasn't kind of a tightly woven story. And, you know, the same with things like Skyrim, and even branching out of the RPG genre into other ones. It's rare to have an open world game that actually does what The Witcher does best, which is the decisions, the plot, the characters, the tight narrative focus. I really don't know how well that's going to work. I mean, I'm hoping. I look forward to eating my words and thoroughly enjoying it and loving it, but I can't help but feel this might be a bit of a weird departure for the series for kind of the final entry into it.
Yeah, I mean, presumably it's going to do the thing where it has a very distinct main narrative thread. You mentioned New Vegas, that has one of those. You know, especially at the start, you're trying to find out who shot you in the head. That kind of leads you to Vegas itself, and presumably around that they're going to have a bunch of side quests and other things to do. I know they've talked about sort of monster hunting specifically, because obviously that's his profession and all. So I presume there's going to be sort of areas where you can freeform hunt monsters for various rewards and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean it's very early, so it's hard to say how this is all going to be structured and so forth. Go on.
I'm hoping that it's going to be one of two things, really. That it's either going to be, again, fairly narrative led, with lots of characters and so on and so forth, and they'll somehow merge that in properly, or that open world is a bit of a truthful mislabeling, and that it ends up being a bit more like how the majority of JRPGs work, insofar as it is fairly linear, but you can go back to previous areas at any time, as in it's not the entire world is open right from the start, but you are somewhat gated still, and new regions open up and you can do things in there, which would technically be open world. It's just not open world right from the beginning. You can go back to earlier areas later, and there's new side quests and things to do. That I could see working fairly well for it. I don't quite know how well it's going to work. I'm looking forward to finding out. Yeah, I've got a little bit of fear for this at the moment.
Well, we'll see. It's due in 2014, so not quite as long to wait for that as there is for Cyberpunk, which is good at least. Paul, do you have any views on The Witcher 3? How do you like Geralt's new look? He's gone all beardy from the screenshot with, or rather the concept art that I've seen.
I didn't see it. I haven't seen it actually, to be perfectly honest, because I was on a conference call. But I don't know. I actually didn't play the second one. I played the first one. I did enjoy the first one, and I have the second one stacked up in my pile of things to do. So I'm kind of like you in this, Peter. I'm leaving my games till about 2017, and I might get round to it. But it sounds interesting. But like I say, because I haven't played the second one, I can't really compare that to the first, if you see what I mean. So can't really comment on it. I haven't actually seen the shot yet. The shot. Yeah.
No, it's more of a concept art wallpaper thing rather than a screen.
Well, if the shot they put out the other day in their sort of technology update, if that was from The Witcher 3, then it does look pretty outstanding. Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see until we see some more actual proper screenshots of it.
Yeah.
The Witcher 2 did look gorgeous. I mean, that still looks fantastic today, quite frankly. Although it's not that old, so that's not really a big surprise. But yeah, this should look very, very nice, I would think. In terms of size, The Witcher 2 did have some fairly large areas, but it certainly wasn't open world or anything. While this is, what, something like 20 or 30% bigger than Skyrim, they reckon?
So they say, yeah. That's the sort of I don't know, hype quotes that they're trotting out, that it's larger than Skyrim. Yeah. I was quite pleased. I mean, it's perhaps weird to say that I'm pleased by this, but they've said it's going to be the last one in the series, and I kind of admire a developer who is prepared to knock something on the head that could obviously sell on to, you know, Witcher 4, Witcher 5, whatever. But if, you know, it seems like if they have a narrative arc to conclude, it seems like they're going to do that, and I honestly, personally, much prefer that than spinning a series out ad infinitum. I mean, I think Assassin's Creed started to suffer a little bit from that. Tim, you're nodding your head vigorously.
Do you think that people will write in and complain about the ending?
Possibly. It depends if it's based on 3 different, I don't know, magical explosions, I suppose. Good old Mass Effect 3, still rumbling on controversially after a full year almost.
If CD Projekt Red retain the license, I wouldn't be entirely surprised if they revisit The Witcher in sort of 5 or 6 years or so, but I am happy that they are concluding this arc and then putting the series to rest for a while. It sounds like a good way of doing it rather than dragging things out. If they give us 3 great games out of it, then that's better than giving us 3 great games and then some games that are not so great and then a couple of really bad ones, and then they can the series.
Well, all they've got to do is just sort of say, oh, he's had a son and he will carry on his legacy or something, you know, and then it'll be sort of episode 4, you know. But then, and there'll be The Witcher, instead of the R on the end, it will be a number 4.
They can't really do that though, because Witchers are sterile, so...
Okay, well,
anyway.
whatever, Tim. It was just an idea.
Undermining with some law knowledge.
You pedantic turd.
It's a pretty magical universe, though. Sorry, Tim, I talked all over that.
That's quite all right. You said it's a magical universe. I said yes. I'm sorry for actually playing the games.
Plus, you know, what about adoption? Maybe he's adopted a kid or something like that. You know. It could still work. There's so many ways this could work.
Not saying anything.
Alright, okay. Is adoption not canon in the Witcher universe? I'm sorry.
No, it was one of the book stories. Not going into this, not going in depth into a lore discussion for The Witcher.
Yeah, please don't.
That's on. Let's just say that.
Especially with Paul, who's played the first game, and me, who's played neither of them, it's going to be a bit pointless, really.
Exactly.
This does kind of move us quite nicely into another a series that is being taken out of rotation. Apparently, EA have said that they are giving Medal of Honor a bit of a rest due to the non too favourable critical and sales reaction to Medal of Honor Warfighter, the one from last year. Or Medal of Honor Doorfighter, as the amusing YouTube video would have it, which is just multiple shots of people breaching doors set to music, which is excellent. Anyway, yeah, they had some curious reasons for doing this, EA. My favourite one, EA's Peter Moore said that the game was solid, but the focus on combat authenticity did not resonate with consumers. Combat authenticity, that's not the phrase that would instantly spring to mind with a sort of Medal of Honor video game, you know. Haven't been to Afghanistan or Iraq myself, but I'm fairly confident from occasionally speaking to people who have that it's not quite like it is as portrayed in Medal of Honor games. He
really should have just had the balls and said it was shit. And you know, nobody's buying it, so the reviews were crap.
Right, but instead they sort of say they reference the reviews. blah blah blah. Critics were polarized and gave the game scores which were frankly lower than it deserved. Well, so I don't think you, as the high up person in EA, gets to say what the game deserves. I think that's kind of the job of the games press and the people who are buying the game. I think they get to decide what scores it deserves, and they kind of voiced that opinion. I think with its sales and its reviews.
I mean,
So,
how long can they keep recycling the same shooters? Though, I mean, really, it is getting a little bit tedious. And there's just so many. You got your CODs, you got your Battlefields, you got your Medal of Honors.
Yep. Well, you haven't got your Medal of Honors anymore.
No, you haven't. No.
Although we probably will do in a few years. Do you know what we need?
Exactly.
What we haven't had for a while? We need a World War II first-person shooter.
No,
We haven't
even
had one of
that's.
them for years.
Bizarrely, Tim, never thought the time would come where that comment was true, but yeah.
What we really need is Quake Wars 2. That's what we really need.
It's very,
Quake Wars isn't really that great.
Oh no,
So,
Tim, you don't understand. You just don't understand. Don't even go there with me.
It's trying to say you a rant, but it didn't work. Oh well.
a little bit antagonistic, the podcast this week. I think it all kicked off with the bunk beds, and it's just gone downhill from there. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, this probably just means though that because previously the plan was to alternate between doing Medal of Honor and a Battlefield game. One year it's going to be Medal of Honor, the other year it's going to be Battlefield. So what this really means though is DICE are just going to have to work extraordinarily hard, and it's going to be Battlefield every year from here on out until people get sick of that, and then EA reinvent Medal of Honor and bring it back with a fanfare and say, oh, you've been really missing Medal of Honor, haven't you? Here it is again, good news. At least that's my cynical opinion.
No, it's,
Don't know if anyone-
it's tarnished. The name is tarnished.
Well, the Medal of Honor name has been tarnished for a while. I mean, other than kind of the original PlayStation games and Allied Assault. And I didn't mind the first. I quite liked the first of the reboot games. But I mean, there is a lot of crap associated with the series. I think that it's still a brand that they can absolutely do something with, but I do think it needs a proper redesign from the ground up. Whatever they do with the name next, it needs to be a new game, not following in the footsteps of other games, but something that's actually new, does things quite differently, something original. It needs to be something special to actually stand out, because that's a really crowded market, and the name isn't as big as they perhaps think it is. But we'll see.
I think Medal of Honor, Crimean War. That's what I'd. So even though I don't think America was involved in that in the slightest, but never mind. It doesn't
What
matter.
about what about Medal of Honor Crime Fighter, where you have spandex?
Oh, I thought you were going for a police game there, but no, you've gone the superhero route. Yeah.
All right, Medal of Honor Theft Auto.
Where it's a first-person open world set in a US city, and you are a veteran down on his luck, so you need to get involved with criminal enterprises or something.
Yeah, man, we're genius. We're absolutely genius.
Brilliant. All right, we'll pitch that one later on. There has, moving on to something where we're not inventing games, but something that might involve invented games, possibly. There's been a bit of a Steam data mining operation gone on of late. People like to do this, digging around in Steam's files to see if they can get the scoop on games that are coming to the service. And it found quite a few games, actually, to name a few interesting ones. They had Brutal Legend was in there, a Double Fine heavy metal themed RTS/adventure type game. Halo 3 was there, Fez was there, Dyad was there, which that one was actually confirmed yesterday. I don't know if you guys saw this, but the developer did a pretty amusing webcam recorded video where he said, well, it's kind of been outed now, so I guess I'll confirm it. I don't have anything interesting to say about it really, but yeah, it's coming out on Steam in March. Look forward to that. So, I guess the question is then whether these other ones are actually going to show up on the service or not. I actually tried to ask Double Fine and and their PC publisher, whether Brutal Legend was going to come to Steam, but they've so far remained stony silence on that front, so no surprise there really, but I did try and find that out. Microsoft have sort of semi-denied the Halo thing by saying we have no plans at this time, which is pretty open-ended, because, you know, in a week, maybe we do have plans, so what a surprise. So yeah, Tim, you have secret knowledge about this, which you can't really... I've got written down here, Tim's secret source of knowledge.
Well, we'll quickly...
Without getting you into too much trouble.
Without getting me into trouble, I was just going to say quickly, first of all, Dyad's been confirmed now, as you mentioned. Fez, the developer, Phil Fish?
Yep.
He said before that he was looking at bringing Fez to multiple platforms, so that's a probable. Brutal Legend wouldn't be a huge surprise. It'd be quite nice to see. I think that'd fit in well. Halo, probably not. Yeah, I do know from personal experience that the data mining stuff on Steam does tend to be indicative of things, although it's not necessarily proof that they will definitely turn up. There were a couple of reasonably high-profile titles which people discovered had entries on Steam, which then never came to the service. And I know for a fact that at least one of those was kind of in testing on the service, but it was never made public for whatever reason. I can't really go into any more details than that, or people might start shouting at me with lawyers. I'm not quite sure what I can say. So yeah, this is probably indicative to some respect that people are perhaps looking into doing it, but it's certainly not proof that it's definitely coming.
We can say with some degree of certainty that it probably indicates that Microsoft have at least toyed with the idea of putting some of the Halo games on there.
Yeah, I mean, considering that we've got Halo 4 now, and since Halo 3 we've had ODST and probably various others. I don't know. I don't pay much attention to that series because I don't like it. It wouldn't entirely surprise me if we did wind up with the Halo games hitting Steam at some point. Halo 1 and 2 were both on PC at some point, and Halo 3 has probably lived out its life on console, so some sort of bundle wouldn't necessarily surprise me, though it does seem an odd move since Microsoft tend to focus more on their console development rather than anything, but I don't know.
Interesting. Well, tangentially, something else relating to Steam, or at least digital games in general, is last week a consumer group in Germany opened up a lawsuit with Valve over the matter of not being able to resell or basically trade your Steam games. Something that the group has tried before actually and got shut down in the German federal court, I think, in something like 2010. But they're having another go. Not necessarily to get into the lawsuit as such, because it's turgid legal nonsense, but and it may or may not succeed. But I was just wondering what you think about the. I'll start with you, Paul. What do you think about? Do you think you should be able to resell your stuff on either Steam or other digital services?
I hadn't really actually thought about it too much, because it's not something that I've really considered to do myself. And I don't know if I'd actually be that bothered about doing it myself, and I don't know why you'd do it.
Well, as a games journalist, I would do it because I get a lot of stuff to review that I'd be quite happy to sell on for...
Yeah. Well,
wait, no, that's not legal, is it? I wouldn't do. I would never do.
You do know all the console boxes that we get sent to have big bright yellow branding across them saying for sale, promotional copy only.
No, absolutely. No, well, you wouldn't be able to sell on the ones that were kind of like beta test ones anyway. But no, obviously I was joking about that. I would never. I mean, some people have said that it would kind of affect obviously it would have an effect on the digital economy to some degree. It's very difficult to say what that effect would be unless it were brought in, really.
I think it'd be a pretty negative effect, really. You could see prices in general of new titles going up. I mean, everyone's going to make a cut somewhere along the line. So I think
Yeah, I mean, right now, obviously, I think developers and publishers do pretty well from the regular Steam sales, where they or GOG sales or whatever Gamersgate sales, whatever it may be, where they slash the price on something and get a few more sales out there. But I guess yeah, if used sales were an option, then they'd be missing out on that because people would just be kind of trading them amongst themselves, especially sort of single player games that have possibly a limited lifespan. You know you've played through the campaign once or twice, you're kind of done with it. You'll just sell it on. So yes, Tim, what about you with your mighty backlog? Would you be selling on?
well, Tim would be a millionaire if he sold us on.
I probably would. I've been waiting for the Steam calculator website to come back up so that it can tell me how much my account is worth, because it's got to be in the hundreds of thousands of pounds by now. I would like to see it. I mean, I haven't really thought a great deal about the digital economy itself. I don't tend to buy pre-owned games. I tend to buy new because, for the most part, I am a bit of a collector when it comes to games anyway, so I like things to be shiny and new in general. But yeah, I think I'd quite like to see it, if only because right now the games essentially lose all value the instant that you buy them. With a console game or something, you buy it and it does still have a degree of resale value. You know, it's still worth something. Whereas with a PC game, you buy it and that's it. It's linked to your account and you can't do anything with it, and it immediately has a value of £0, 0 pence. That said, I do want to note that Green Man Gaming at least does let you trade in games, digital games. I mean, a lot of their sales are stuff that go through that they'll give you a Steam code or an Origin code and you can't trade them in, or if there's a CD key that's linked to an account, you can't trade them in. But if it's something that basically is just going through their site, then yeah, if you buy something, you can then trade it in later to get money off something else, which is quite nice to see. I just don't think that publishers will really go for this because they really do like tying things to individual accounts. Steam shifting on this would be a major move and not one I would expect to see. I can't imagine they would do this without significant pressure.
No, well, they don't seem inclined to. Certainly, would only be legal pressure. I think that would really move along.
And I'm guessing that's why there's a court case then.
The one other thing about this, though, I mean, much as prices might go up, you might also have. I can't really see this happening, but there is the possibility that there are people who would actually start buying games on Steam, because I know there is a minority of people out there, at least, who are essentially worried about using Steam and things like that simply because of the complete lack of value that things have once you pay for them, and as such they prefer to get them on console or something so that they can resell them. So you might see an uptake in sales if that happened. I don't know. It bears closer investigation, really.
I guess that's why Valve hired their economists to look at precisely these issues and all that kind of thing. All right, well, let's move on to some games that we have been playing and not considering reselling this week. Just want to reiterate and put a line under that fact. Yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about Omerta, which I was sort of unable to do last week because it was still under embargo. The review of that went up at the end of last week. So if you've read that, which obviously you should have done, then you'll know that I quite liked it, but was also a little on the disappointed side. I mean, the developers, whose name I struggle to pronounce, I think it's Haymamont or something along those lines. The Bulgarian developers did Tropico 3, which I liked a great deal, especially with one or two of its expansion packs, and Tropico 4, which was also pretty well received in the sort of, it's pretty much like Tropico 3, but if you haven't played 3, you might get 4 kind of way.
Did you just quote my review? Because I'm pretty certain it's basically the entirety of it.
In summary, yeah, pretty much. And it does bring some of the things from the Tropico series. I mean, it's obviously gangster based. It's set in 1920s Atlantic City, not at all like Boardwalk Empire, the HBO hit series, during Prohibition. you're essentially a new up and coming boss. You do sort of sequential missions in a sense. It's a lot like Tropico in that respect, where in Tropico you do individual islands and you'd have a certain goal on each island to earn a certain amount of money or establish a certain type of economy or something. It's a lot like that. I think there's 16 missions in the single player campaign, and yeah, you'll have the aim of making a certain amount of money from real estate or doing some tasks to get a corrupt mayor elected or something like that. And so sort of tonally and in terms of atmosphere, they get an awful lot right. The music's really good. The voice acting is mostly good, and when it's not good, it's at least entertaining. So I'll give it a pass on that. Graphically, it looks pretty nice. The sort of like nice period portraits for all the characters and stuff like that. This main problem with the kind of overview strategic map is that you don't get to see enough of an effect of your actions on the map. So like they have all these great buildings that you can build. So, you can set up like a protection racket or a Ponzi scheme or a labor union or something. But the problem is, to set up a labor union, the process is have enough money, select a building type that you can put the labor union in, select it, it's in there, it'll then start earning you money. But you don't really see, like, the building doesn't change, and you don't see then, like, I don't know, strikes underway in different parts of town or anything like that. You've just got the same old building, which, if by random chance happened to be like a cafe or something, it still looks like a cafe, and it's like, well, how is the labor union now being run out of this?
You visual feedback on your activities, essentially.
Yeah, there's quite little of that, which is a surprise, because I mean Tropico was extremely good for doing that. I don't know if this is sort of a budgetary restriction, it may well be, but it's just a bit of a shame that when you've got your Gangster Empire up and running, essentially all you see is some spinning symbols above the buildings that are pretty generic, and you see the money rolling in, but yeah, you're not really seeing the results of setting up your kind of network of illegal underground boxing rings and pawn shops and stuff like that. I mean, it sounds good. It kind of reminds me of like an older, like if it was on like the Amiga or something, all of this stuff would have just been done in like static screens, and that would have been fine because graphical limitations and all that. But since you have this sort of city set up, it's really weird that you don't get to see any of this stuff. And the other major component is periodically in the missions you get sent on little turn-based combat encounters, either to like spring your men out of jail or knock a rival gang out of the area or something like that. And the turn-based combat is sort of fine. It's not. I feel bad for the game because almost every review has referenced XCOM, and that's kind of it's kind of a high bar to set, really. It's a little harsh. I mean, yeah, absolutely. If you're going to do turn-based, you should strive for something like that. But it's not up there with XCOM. It's missing a few. Well, I say missing. They haven't included a few features that you would kind of expect from turn-based combat. There's no reloading. There's no real Overwatch function. It has some good stuff, like the different weapons function differently, and different perks that your gangsters can pick up have some sort of interesting effects in combat. But it's just fine. It's all right, and the same goes to the strategy side. It's kind of okay, but with some issues. So a bit of a disappointment. But as I said in the review, if it pops up on sale somewhere and you fancy a gangster themed strategy style game, it's not too bad. It'll keep you entertained, I would say.
Right, I've got a question.
Go ahead.
Have you watched Boardwalk Empire?
I have seen, bizarrely, I've seen like a couple of episodes. I haven't like got fully into it yet, but I perhaps have seen enough.
Paul, have you seen Boardwalk Empire?
I watch it religiously.
Right, maybe you can explain this to me then, because I've tried watching it and I just can't get into it. The first episode was great, but then after that, it kind of seems like sort of 5 to 10 minutes of really good stuff, surrounded by about 40 minutes of boredom.
Yeah, but what do you
So I don't know.
what do you class as boredom though, Tim?
I don't know. It's just very slow. There's nothing. There's no real hook or anything.
Nah,
like that.
you've got to stick with it because it does actually really hot up. It's a really good end of the last series, which I think is starting actually in about a week and a half or something, or 2 weeks. But no, you should stick with it. It is really good. Well worth it. Best thing on telly, actually.
Okay. And I've successfully transitioned this into a TV podcast.
Yeah.
I've just watched the US version of House of Cards, which is very good. If anyone's looking for other TV recommendations,
I really liked the British version of that. I was kind of I had high hopes for the US version, but I haven't had a chance to watch it yet.
well, I've seen both, and I'd say the US version compares pretty well. Like they've done a few changes and things. Obviously, it's in the US Senate and Congress now, but anyway.
Yeah. My current TV watching list, I mean, I've been meaning to watch Ripper Street for a while, and I've been going through Suits at the moment, which isn't too bad. Anyway.
When you're not watching TV, Tim, I heard you've been playing Ace Combat, and when your monitor hasn't been broken, I've heard you've been playing Ace Combat.
I had great fun to get the save games across onto this computer.
Just in case you're wondering,
yeah.
just in case you're wondering what I'm watching, I've been watching Parks and Recreation. So there you go.
Oh no, that's really good too. Yeah, I'm pretty far through that. That's a good series. Yeah.
I've heard good
More
things about it.
recommendations.
I haven't watched it yet. Should I sort of get into that at some point soon?
Yes, I would.
and That's another one you should stick with, because
Yeah.
the first season they're sort of aping The Office a little bit too much, but then it really picks up pretty well after they find their feet.
I'm just noting all of this down on the screen in a notepad window, just so I can remember all this after the podcast's over.
This must be riveting for
Sorry,
listeners.
and viewers, if you're a little bit, if you're not into this TV discussion, but some recommendations for you. It's all good stuff. So yeah, Ace Combat. Does it compare well with Boardwalk Empire and Suits?
For the past week or so, I've primarily been playing Ni no Kuni on PlayStation. Wait, no, we can't talk about PlayStation games, can we? It's another. It's all right. It's another Namco Bandai game. We'll be fine. No, I've been playing
for the UK charts as well, but it's not on the PC. So
probably just about every chart. And what the hell was going on with the Wizard edition of that as well? How much did they oversell that? Anyway,
I don't know.
Moving on. I've been playing Ace Combat Assault Horizon Enhanced Edition, which I think I've managed to remember correctly, which is on PC, obviously, and it's the story of a boy who's about 8, well, maybe 10, no wait, that's Ni no Kuni again.
And his Welsh companion. I really love that they've got a really strong Welsh accent for his, I know we're talking about Ni no Kuni now. I think that's awesome that they've got this kind of like a rich UK-based accent in that game. It's great.
It's really good. It's I really want to talk about Ni no Kuni, but I won't. I'll resist.
Am I seriously going to have to come over there and shoot you, Tim?
Not that Namco Bandai would mind, as, speaking of Ni no Kuni, they've also published Ace Combat Assault Horizon Enhanced Edition, which is on PC.
That sounds like a great game, Tim. Tell us about that.
Well, Ace Combat Assault Horizon Enhanced Edition, which my Steam list hilariously shortens to Ace Combat Assault Ho. It's a game in which you fly planes. Sorry?
It's worth it just for that.
Basically. It's a game in which you fly planes and you shoot lots of other planes. And I do mean lots of other planes. I just finished the single-player campaign about an hour before this podcast, and I think my confirmed kills were in the region of about 300, which is probably worth more than the GDP of most small countries, and possibly several big ones. It's not really a flight sim. It's very arcadey. You have your plane, and you almost certainly control it from a third-person perspective rather than in cockpit, and you shoot down a shitload of other planes. Lots of them, lots and lots and lots of them. Really speaking, most missions have sort of you and your wingmen who are not completely useless, but are mostly there to provide background chatter and other planes flying around. You'll shoot down a wave of 5 planes, and then another wave of 5 planes will come in, and then maybe you'll have to escort a plane against 2 or 3 waves of 7 or 8 planes. And this goes on for a while. It's very Hollywood, and it's, as I said, very arcadey. You perform lots of maneuvers that are completely unrealistic and physically impossible as far as I'm aware. Your plane has regenerating health. You carry 200 missiles at any given time. So it's not exactly Falcon 4.0, is kind of what I'm getting at there. Go on.
I have a couple of questions. You can take them in any order. The first one is, so that sounds like it might get a bit repetitive. And my second, and if it doesn't, why not? And I guess my second question is, I read a bit of stuff that said that previous Ace combats had more kind of like out there plots, and this one's a bit more, slightly more like contemporary military focused in its sort of narrative. I don't know if that resonates with you at all as a complaint or an issue.
Okay, well, we'll deal with the repetition after,
Yeah.
because that's more gameplay, and I'll probably get
Sure.
in depth to talk about that. In terms of being contemporary military, yeah. I haven't played much of the rest of the series, but from what I can gather, this is I think this is only the second game in the series that's actually been set in the real world. And yeah, you start off in Northern Africa, I think, fighting rebels, and then it kind of shifts focus and becomes a bit more sort of rogue states and super weapons and very silly Call of Duty meets Tom Clancy in the air sort of plot. It's still quite ridiculous, but yeah, it's very much real world. It's sort of Hollywood. It's sort of Michael Bay does Top Gun, if that helps sum things up at all. As for the repetition, it does pretty well on that count, if only because it does manage to be fairly varied. Do you remember when we were talking about Strike Suit Zero? And kind of one of the worries was that because that's in space, it would all look very samey and so on and so forth. But it kind of mixed that up with lots of pretty nebulas, and the missions had quite different feels. It sort of does the same thing. You're fighting around a lot of different regions around the world, sort of night and day. Some are high altitude, some are very low altitude. It does mix things up with different game types. You're not just flying planes throughout the whole thing. There are a couple of missions where you're flying helicopters as well, which control very differently and equally unrealistically. There are a couple of rail shooter missions where you're the door gunner in a helicopter, where you are literally just sort of shooting at things with a crosshair. And there is almost inevitably a mission where you're doing a bombing run in an AC-130, which totally isn't anything like what Call of Duty has done several times.
Okay.
But yeah, it mixes things up and it keeps them fairly entertaining. One of the new things that this has, as I can understand anyway, is that it's got a mode called dogfighting mode. Generally speaking, the enemies you shoot down are grouped into 2 different types. You've basically got the fodder, and you've got ones that are highlighted in red with target lead, which implies that they're actually good pilots. And they have an uncanny ability to dodge everything you fire at them, unless you're in dogfighting mode, where you have to close into about 500 meters and be roughly behind them. At which point you press a button and you're kind of locked in behind them.
Didn't want to let the phrase "be roughly behind them" go past unchecked. Sorry, that was all I wanted to say there. Oh, I know you've got the child's bedroom behind you, Tim, but really it's me that's perennially stuck in immature years.
The adolescent mindset.
Yes.
That's fine. It wouldn't be an IncGamers podcast without at least one completely inappropriate sexual reference. Yeah, dogfighting mode kind of transitions it into a bit more of a rail shooter with skill, at which point your plane kind of follows along behind them to an extent. And you're basically trying to keep a targeting reticle over them to lock missiles on and trying to shoot them down. And this is primarily used, I think, for sort of impressive cinematic stuff where you've got 2 planes very close behind each other, sort of jinking in and out behind skyscrapers and things like that at low altitudes. And yeah, there is a degree of skill there. The targeting reticle is bigger if you're closer to them, but obviously you've also got less time to react if they try and turn to one side. I mean, it never really shakes the feel that that's a bit of a mini game that's been bolted on and is of some importance. It doesn't really feel like you're flying a plane at high velocity. It feels like you are doing a rail shooter segment with a bit more depth than usual. It's the sort of game that I can't help but damn with faint praise, really. I quite enjoyed it. It's very silly and it's full of explosions, and the screen gets splashed with oil if you're really close to a plane when you shoot it down, and lots of huge explosions, and it's very bombastic. But it doesn't really do anything exceptionally well, which isn't necessarily a big problem because it is kind of budget priced. It released at £20. And for that price, it's probably worth the go, as long as you're not expecting anything even remotely realistic and have a gamepad, because the mouse and keyboard controls are utterly appalling, to the extent that you actually have to bind the mouse. Otherwise, you will be using the arrow keys to turn the plane and WSA and D for sort of rolling and throttle. And mouse really doesn't work very well with it anyway. I can't really imagine playing it with a flight stick either. If you're in the market for something incredibly realistic, then no. But if you want an arcade game where you get to fly a plane at stupidly high speeds and shoot things down, and fight with the dastardly Russians and terrorists and all sorts of others who have inexplicably large air forces, then yeah, it might be worth a punt. It's quite good fun. But that's unfortunately the best I can really say for it.
I was going to say that your review's coming up, but I think you've just given it. So,
to an extent, yeah. Review will probably be on Thursday or Friday. I should add, I need to play around with the multiplayer, and I need to try out the advanced control scheme as well, which might make things a bit more realistic, because that actually has the plane roll rather than turn. So yeah, right. But for the most, the single player campaign is fairly entertaining, and that's about the best I can say for it, really.
Paul, I heard you have splashed out some cash in order to play what you've been playing recently, which unfortunately you also can't talk about, but can you even talk about what it is? I think you can, because they've announced that you can buy into the alpha, so just silence.
I'd like to add, just for the audio viewers, that this is another moment that you really want to see on video, because he's got his lip stuck out and it's just trembling slightly. He looked a bit like he was going to burst into tears for a moment.
Come on, Paul.
Yeah.
What? I can't talk about it. I can't talk about it.
I can talk about it.
Well, then you can get in trouble then.
Well, I mean, we ran it as a news piece, so I'm pretty sure.
No,
it's not like
I can't
totally
talk.
secret.
I can't talk about anything else, but I am doing the what's it? I don't know. I've forgotten what it's. Oh yeah, that's it. Dirty Bob. That's the one. That's the one. I can't even remember. Couldn't even remember the name of it. But I can't talk about it. So there you go.
Okay.
Good.
But
insightful and informative.
Yeah, I know. I'm really sorry.
I'm sure be able to talk about it at some point.
Yeah, I have. The only other thing I've been playing this week is Path of Exile. Actually, gone back into that because the open beta launched, which means there's no more character wipes, which is great news because I kept avoiding playing it because they kept resetting the characters and you'd kind of invest the time and it kind of like don't know. But so yeah, I'm actually quite enjoying that actually. More so because I've been paying more attention to it this time because I knew that the characters weren't going to get wiped. So paying more attention to the items and the gems and so on for the skills. And I am actually quite enjoying it. More so than I probably thought I would do at this stage. And there's a lot been done to it since I kept looking at it over the periods of time between every character wipe. So that's looking pretty promising actually. I mean, there's still, obviously we've only got 3 acts. We don't have the 4th one. We won't get the 4th one, I shouldn't imagine, until it actually launches, which could be 6 months away. Grinding Gear really taking their time to get this ironed out and polished and getting the itemization right and basically taking a lot of feedback from the actual player base and implementing changes quite quickly as well. There's quite a few updates that are coming throughout the week and they've got more content they want to add. So it's quite interesting watching it all develop and unfold, but it's worth a look, definitely worth a look.
they've had a pretty massive take up on the beta, if I'm remembering correctly. Like they had to a bunch of new servers, and they've got loads of players on there.
Yeah, they have had quite a few problems, especially after the first week, where basically the information in their back end between the US and the EU servers were sort of not syncing or not connecting or something like that. So people were finding they were getting dropped, after about 20 minutes or so of playing, and especially during peak periods, people were dropping out. I mean, it happened to me a few times, and it was actually quite frustrating because you just click that portal to go through to the next bit. If you didn't have the previous waypoint and it dropped, you then have to go and redo that again. So that was a little bit frustrating, but I think they're kind of on top of that now, and they've been working flat out 24/7 to try and get the networking issues resolved. But it's a beta, so people just have to live with it.
Yeah. That's a problem I'm sure they're happy to have, in the sense that if they've got way more players than they were expecting, then that's a nice thing to have to deal with in many ways.
Yeah, I think so. I think they've been pleased with the response. I guess a lot of people will probably pick it up, try it. Some will stay, some may like it, some may not. We'll just have to wait and see how it plays out in the long game. But it's well worth the look.
All right, excellent. And yeah, I'm gonna get in before you, Paul, and say everyone should be following us on Facebook and Twitter.
No.
So that's facebook.com/IncGamers. The Twitters are all on the site. We've got our individual Twitters down the side. What's up at the moment? Well, I wrote an article about how I very much am appreciating the transparency of Kickstarter, the way you can kind of engage with developers and influence game design beyond even just putting in your money into the projects. How that kind of contrasts with the more secretive approach of necessarily secretive sometimes of publicly traded publishers who are very careful about what and when they release information. So that is up there. Obviously, this podcast will be here. Ace Combat's review coming up. I think we're all gonna have a go at Dungeon Land, the multiplayer co-op hack and slash that Paradox have just published. I don't know if that's dependent on your monitor arriving, Tim, or what.
I can play it on this computer if I need to. I have it on here installed, so
there's also the mysterious untitled article, which we can't think
mysterious untitled article, yes.
Which we can't think of a name.
Wrote in a fever dream.
It was. As long as you reviewed the bit about the unicorn, then.
No, I've made that the focus of the piece, actually. Well, that was
not good. That may not see the light of day then, that one.
That may or may not be on its way. We'll see what else we have.
Just as let you know, actually, as well, because a lot of people have been commenting in the Warframe beta thread that the keys have all gone, actually, as of, this afternoon. So I've just double checked that. So a lot of people are going, I can't get a key. That's actually because they've all gone. So that's a phenomenal amount that have actually been picked up. But I guess we'll see if we can get some more.
Should we try and refresh our haul and get another several thousand out of them? Or
yeah, we'll definitely try and do that. Yeah, for sure. It's proved very popular, and of course, just update. I think it was update 6 that just went up.
Yes.
So yeah, I think people are really keen to try it after the update. So
it's got new environments and new moves and stuff. And I had a chat with Steve Sinclair, the creative director from Digital Extremes, about that stuff. The interview you'll be able to find on the site, and it's also linked through the beta giveaway piece as well. And also, speaking of interviews, we talked to Chris Taylor about Wildman as well, which is
that's a really good interview, actually. You should watch that.
A lively one, yeah.
Yeah, it was funny. There was a few bits just with Chris's facial expressions, just absolutely cracked me up. It was so funny. But he's always a good interview subject, and
he really is.
Yeah, he's very good.
If you want to know about the influence that Jesus Christ has had on Wildman, then I recommend checking out that interview.
It is a really good interview. It's well worth a watch.
Indeed. So there's all that, and of course we'll be. We probably would have had a Dead Space 3 review, but EA haven't really been particularly forthcoming about providing us with code for that.
Is that because maybe it could be shit?
It might be a bit shit on PC. I mean, there's been console reviews out today that are
Today
been
being
alright. It's been alright, ranging from
Today.
sort of 6 to 9 kind of span. So, but who knows?
today being its launch day, so
Yeah, right,
yeah,
day,
no,
usually.
PC code might appear in the next few days.
So
Usually get it.
I want to mention one
like-
thing as well, actually, which was last week moving the forums, joining all the forums together. So effectively, one account now does all. So if you were on the Diablo site, for example, or the Torchlight, or so on, then your account will now work across everything, which was pretty difficult to do, but it's done, and it should make life a lot easier for people.
Nice. So if you're on the forums and you want to have opinions about multiple things, you now can. Awesome. All right. Until we return then with another scintillating podcast. I think it's Tim's bedtime, so we're gonna.
Has Mummy got your cocoa on, Tim?
Fuck off.
We're gonna. Oh man, language like that. That's a.
You'll be put on the
grounding.
you'll be put on the naughty step.
Yes. Until next week. Goodbye, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.